All right, check, 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 check. Here we go. Counter's going now. Well, I haven't owned a TV in 20 some odd years. All right. For during that time, I've either just not watched TV or I've sort of learned to take in what would be my television viewing in alternative formats like YouTube, which I'm sure is the case for a lot of us. Now, one of the nice things about turning to an endeavor like I've just turned to, which sort of recently went from some feeble attempts at a podcast to now whatever this is thanks to the good folks at Google, I have 20 plus years of television at my fingertips and my disposal. So I say all this to say not everything that I'm going to be commenting on is recent in the chronological sense. Because the chronological sense is not, or I should say the immediate chronological sense is not my primary concern. I'm picking stuff that is recent culturally, recent ideologically. Okay. I found this clip on YouTube, of course. Imagine that. Found this clip. It's from a couple years ago. In fact, the video I'm going to do next, after probably one or two videos after this, is even further back than that. So don't mind the date on this stuff. It's not hugely important. I'm trying to grab stuff that I think can be dug into and something valuable can be learned, or you know, it's just gonna be fun to comment on, right? I mean, otherwise, why am I doing this? I grew up an NBA fan as a kid. I love playing basketball. Love watching the NBA. As I get older and I gain some perspective on my fandom as a kid, I realized that my fandom was more about some sort of fusion between the game I love to play and the team I love to support. What do I mean by that? I mean, like, I wasn't so it really wasn't like the whole league that I watched as a kid. I watched like the whole league through the lens of the team that I loved. And maybe that was the case with a lot of us. I didn't know a lot technically, fundamentally about the sport. So my knowledge of it and my enjoyment of it wasn't real sort of technical and scientific. It was really more sort of fan-based and emotive. You know, I grew up in the Jordan era. I grew up in the Chicagoland area in the Jordan era. And, you know, how can you not get sucked into that? I remember I first started watching basketball, probably just before the Pistons rose to prominence, sort of at the end of the Lakers era in the late 80s. I was in Michigan during the Pistons era. That was fun. But I didn't really grow up in a sports household. I didn't have a sports inclined father. I didn't have any sort of like framework around me that probably would have given me a sort of more technical appreciation of the game. I was just a young kid, a boy. I loved playing basketball with my friends, even especially, and this remains, it's funny, I'm a 41-year-old man. This remains the case to this day with myself, even just by myself. It's sort of a cathartic, I won't say religious, but sort of a therapeutic, there's nothing I love more, few things I love more than sort of just being out on a court by myself and just working on my shot, or, it's just, I don't know, man. And that's probably because of the way I grew up with it, whatever. It is what it is. But something that has become increasingly interesting to me as I get older and my mind expands and the purview of my concern expands and simultaneously focuses, if that doesn't seem like too much of a contradiction, are the way that cultural issues are reflected in the sporting world. And I say this as a man who does not invest a lot of time and mental energy and spiritual energy in the sporting world the way a lot of dudes do. I did, again, as a younger man. But then I got to a certain point in my life where I was just like, look, man, I just can't. This is not that important, right? And maybe that sounds a little bit self-righteous, and I apologize if it does. I think that if my technical knowledge and my technical appreciation had been stronger as a young man, then that would have sort of carried me through. All right, you see what I'm saying? That would have carried me through into early adulthood and adulthood, and sort of colored or informed my appreciation of the sport. Whereas the sort of mere kind of fandom-based appreciation that I had as a young man wasn't sort of enough to carry it through. So the moment life got a little bit more serious, my concerns got a little bit more, profound or existential or whatever, then the sort of like the just kind of the fandom aspect to my appreciation of sports wasn't really enough to carry it through in my life. Whatever. Or you could just say, Jordan retired. Right? There's that explanation too. Okay, so all that's probably unnecessary to say here, but you got to intro a video in some way. I remember when the Women's Basketball Association came about. Remember being vaguely aware of that happening, sort of like adjacently to the ongoing National Basketball Association, the men's league. Didn't pay a lot of attention to it. A lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to it. I continue to not pay a lot of attention to it, and a lot of people continue to not pay a lot of attention to it. Now, what's fascinating to me now, later in life, as a man who thinks a lot about cultural issues, philosophical issues, and so on and so forth, is why that's the case. All right. And I think I've got some pretty plausible lines of argument in that realm. I don't want to get too into it here, but I found this clip. That I felt was pretty fascinating. There's sometimes there's topics that you tend to, whether you tread and retread them in conversation or dialogue with others, or you tread and retread them sort of mentally, internally with yourself. You can sort of lose your fascination with them. You sort of get a feel for the contours of the argument, and though you don't believe it any less, you grow less sort of enamored with making the case because something comes to feel so obvious to you. But sometimes an angle or a facet of an issue that you've considered a lot and maybe used to animate you but doesn't anymore, a facet of an issue like that can come along and sort of reignite your interest in it, at least momentarily, discussing a topic. I guess that's what's going on here, because I found this clip between on the sports program, the NBA program, The Jump, hosted by what's her face, Rachel Nichols, and and frequent guests, Tracy McGrady. So they had a WNBA player on. Now, I don't remember this girl's name. And the fact that I don't remember her name it might seem peripheral here, but it might be significant. Brianna something. I'm not trying to take unnecessary pot shots, but there is going to be a little bit of significance to this, okay? Because for those of you who don't know, or maybe don't spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff, or who are maybe sort of just sucked into the sort of cultural eddy, the cultural tide that is the equality movement, between men and women, or rather the equality movement as levied by, see what I did there? Levied, tide, eddy, like that. The equality movement as levied by women at men, right? Or some women at all men. For those of you who might be sort of wittingly or unwittingly sucked into that, you might not really realize just how poor are the returns on that investment. Okay? Let me give you an example. I recently read that the WNBA, as a venture, as a business, as a capitalistic endeavor. Now, in a moment, I'm going to infer from all of this that it's not a capitalistic endeavor at all, but just go with me. Right? Listen, the WNBA loses, I think I read recently, on average, loses $10 million a year. So, okay, we're either building or renting out these arenas, and we're sewing uniforms for these players, you know, and we're hiring coaches and training staff, right, and scouts, right, and we're scouting college women's basketball team, Title IX women's basketball team, right? And we're drafting players. We're imitating this whole thing that the men have been doing for forever, right? Imitating what the men have been doing. That might be a refrain here. Might want to come back to that. All with the hopes of founding this league that in some way has some parity with the men's league, and sort of, you know, girls can sort of look at it and go, oh, look, girls can do this too. Right? Okay. But as a venture, because it is all of this, you know, why do people do what they do? Well, they do it because they have something to gain by it. Why are any women playing basketball? Well, because economically speaking, their skills were such that the possibility of making more money than they would have otherwise made, right, with their basketball skills presented itself, and they, right, okay. So why does anybody invest in women's basketball? Why is there a league at all? We know why there's a men's league, because it's profitable, because everyone on up the chain makes money. It's not just like LeBron James makes money, right? The league makes money. The owners make money. The coaches make money, right? Everyone's making money. There's not like some black hole on up the chain where everything's being sucked into, and it's like a pyramid scheme where, like, right? Everyone's making money because the product is desirable. People want to watch it. People want to consume it. People want to see it. People want to talk about it, commentate on it, rewatch it, you know, as evidenced by, think of, like, I just thought of this as we were talking about, think about like the ESPN Classic channel, where, and I do this sometimes, you'll just go on YouTube and watch ESPN Classic. You'll watch a basketball tournament or get, like, you know, some finals or playoff series from like 25 years ago. You'll just watch it. Why do you do that? It's exciting. Why is it exciting? Well, I mean, a number of reasons, but the product's real good. It's good basketball being played, right? Right? It's exciting, right? Sorry, I didn't really think about this as I was just getting ready to press record, but I'm trying to imagine a scenario in which 25 years from now, there's some WNBA playoff series replayed on the ESPN Classics channel. Spoiler alert, it's not going to happen. I don't even know the teams that were in the playoffs last year in the WNBA. All right? Now, I'm not trying to be punchy. I'm not trying to be antagonistic. I'm trying to illustrate for you something that's sort of cultural and economic. Why don't I know that? Because I don't care. Why don't I care? Because, well, the thing is not exciting enough for me to care. Now you might say, well, that's you. That's just your personal taste. Right. But that's what economics is based in. A bunch of individual personal tastes. Now the WNBA is losing $10 million a year. You might say, well, who's footing that bill? The NBA. The NBA is subsidizing the WNBA to the tune of $10 million a year. Now, I'm going to save, because the thinking among you will go, well, hold on a second. Why would anyone continue to do that year after year? If it's not profitable, it's not profitable. You open up a cookie shop and no one likes your fucking cookies, you shut down the shop or change your recipe. Right? That's how economics works. That's how markets work. You can't make people want something they don't want. You try to tailor what you're making to their tastes so that you can sell it and provide for your family and yourself, right? That's just how it works. What's interesting about this clip, and because I've watched a lot of discussions of like the pay gap in women's soccer and women's sports generally and things like that. I'm going to do a couple videos on that as well coming up. But this was sort of new territory because it was sort of an interview with a WNBA player where an interesting proposal was made. And again, this is 2 years old. I got kids, man. I don't want to take in a lot of this stuff. But a really interesting proposal was put forward by a former NBA player, not just a former NBA player, one of the greats, okay, that I never thought about. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, that's a really good idea. All right. And for all of my sort of like hand waving and naysaying at the very idea of women's basketball, I had to sort of step back and go, step back, a little basketball terminology, a little basketball pun for you there. I had to sort of step back, right? Like Luka Doncic or James Harden, and sort of step back and go, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's actually a good idea. And as much as I don't give two shits about women's basketball and probably never will, that actually, if I'm honest, that might help. I mean, like, do you understand? I'm not going to watch women's basketball. And you might see it, you might think, if you're naive and you're ignorant, you can be like, oh, you're being sexist. No, I'm not going to watch it because it's not exciting. All right. I know I'm being very provocative here. Why not? I'm not going to watch it, but I'm only able to say that because I'm being brutally honest with you. And to be brutally honest with you, or to continue to be brutally honest with you, I have to say that this suggestion was pretty helpful. I really had to think about this and go, okay, given how everyone misses the mark with why no one wants to watch women's basketball and why it's a hopeless endeavor and why the NBA is losing $10 million a year trying to subsidize it. Again, why they're doing that is nothing to do with sports. It's cultural, it's theological, it's social. We'll talk about it in another video, okay? But I really had to sort of step back and go, oh, that's, as things go, that's a really good suggestion. And that is going to form the basis of this short discussion that we're going to sort of analyze in this video. So without further ado, it's that one chick that hosts The Jump. I think it's on ESPN, right? And it's Tracy McGrady, and some chick from the WNBA, right? Brianna. Well, we'll find out. All right. So there's a short discussion, 2 or 3 minutes between them, and Tracy McGrady has a really interesting proposal for the problem that eternally plagues the Women's Basketball Association. All right. So let's get to it.
The 2016 draft, Brianna Stewart.
Yeah, everybody clap. Who? All right, look, I'm not going to apologize. My sentiment reflects the common sentiment as is evidenced by the economic market. I'm not going to apologize. You know why? Because despite the punchiness and the caustic nature of my perspective here, my comments, I got Brianna's best interest in mind. And this is what these chicks don't understand. They want to make more money. All right? The first step to making more money is understanding why you're not currently making the amount of money you want to make. All right? Then step 2. So I know I'm sounding purposely provocative here, by even just, sort of like chiding her for the unenthusiastic intro. But really the point of this video is that this is really the first segment I've watched on this subject. And I mean just all the way, if we abstract all the way out to sort of the general level of the gender pay gap, not even in sports, right? Okay, we can abstract all the way out to that level of generalization. This is really the first segment that I've watched where there was really, this is just profound to me, there was a positively constructive, provocative suggestion put forward on how to rectify this thing in a constructive way. I guess this is really what drew me to this video. I'm now just sort of thinking about why is it that of all the videos that I have on this topic, why is this the one that I was like, I got to do, right when we're getting started here, I got to do a video on that. It's because Tracy McGrady's suggestion that you're going to hear in a minute is really interesting. And I say this as a person who's like, look, I'm never watching women's basketball. Nothing is ever going to get me to watch women's basketball. I say this as the market you want to corner. All right? If you can get me, you can get anybody. Because there's no effing way I'm watching women's basketball. Have I made the case? All right. So I'm making fun of the in-studio canned applause here, but it's for a reason. Because someone's got to knock some sense, shut up, I know what you're thinking, into these women's heads about this topic. Because they're irrational. Shut up, I know what you're thinking. All right? Listen to this.
Nice.
All right, here's another piece to this. It's also fascinating to watch the dynamic of the various men at the round table, the oval table, whatever you want to call it, participating at various levels of acquiescence to the feminist machine. All right. So, of course, Tracy McGrady, who is the more manlier man of the two men at the table, right? Brian Windhorst is not exactly the most, right? The manliest personality in television commentary, sports commentary, whatever. I'm not coming at the guy. I'm just saying. Tracy McGrady, having played the sport, having participated in the sport, is going to draw a little bit harder lines, a little more distinct lines about what makes it what it is. All right. But even here at the outset, Tracy McGrady's got to throw in this little comment. He's got to throw a little bone to what's her face? What's her name again? I'm sorry. What's her name again? Brianna something or other. All right. So she nice, right? Okay. It's interesting, isn't it? Women want equal treatment. They want equal pay. They want equal this. They want equal that. But they really don't, right? They really don't. They want it where it's beneficial. They don't want it where it's detrimental. Okay? That might be an angle to this that is for another video, or it might come up at some point here. But he's trying to throw a little oh yeah, I enjoy watching her. No, you don't. You've never watched a clip of Brianna What's-Her-Face playing ball before your producers prepped you to do this segment. And that's a fact. All right? Why? Because it's not exciting. All right? It's not important for economic reasons. No one's checking for the WNBA as evidenced by the fact that the NBA is subsidizing it to the tune of $10 million a year. It's not important for that reason. And from a purely athletic, purely sporting standpoint, it's not important either, because they don't compare to the men's league in any way, shape, or form. All right? Let's be real. But that being said, again, the reason I picked this clip is because Tracy McGrady just pulls out of his hat a suggestion that I'm like, I had to really stop. And I had to be like, hey, you know what? As cavalier as I treat this topic, as hand wavy, you know what that means? When you wave your hand to something, like, yeah, whatever. Like, I don't want to hear, you can't tell me nothing about this topic because I've thought it through, and whatever you're going to say is not going to help the problem. It's like, I'm as hand wavy as I get about this topic. There's a suggestion put forward here that, man, I'm looking at this girl like, hey, you ought to think about this. You really just better consider this for a moment, all right? Anyways, let's go.
Thank you for joining us. We're supposed to talk about basketball.
Something about bling. Y'all always messing with me.
are.
Look at her.
Yeah, he's just, look, he knows he's got something to put forward. He knows this is a touchy topic in general, all right? And he knows he's about to make a suggestion that she's going to, as a woman who wants equality, she's going to bristle at. So he's just stroking her, whatever you want to call it. He's doing what a husband does to a wife, right? Because women operate on the basis of their emotions, and you got to build them up before you offer anything remotely reflecting constructive criticism. Otherwise, they will fall apart. Okay? So, he's just stroking her.
No. Stop. Number one overall pick. Stop. You weren't the number one overall pick. I'm sorry.
No.
So, there you go. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, and here he's even acquiescing to Rachel Nichols' bullshit point about he wasn't the number one pick, whereas she was. Yeah, you were the number one pick of the throwaway of the WNBA. Okay, Tracy McGrady is one of the greatest players to ever play basketball. Let's be real. Okay? But he's being nice. He's being a good husband here. All right? And he's just letting her have all the accoutrements of acclaim that she needs to get her confidence up to the level where she can talk comfortably about it, right? This is so fun. This is so funny. But I really, again, sorry, I really want you to hear what he's got to say in a second, because up until the point that I just watched this clip, which again is 2 years old, I'd never really considered this. And I'm sure I'm probably behind the ball on that. I'm sure it's come up here and there in other discussions. I don't care, right? But then it was said and I was like, hold on a second. That is a constructive suggestion. And I promise I'm going to quit pausing here in a second. We're going to get to it. But I just want you to appreciate what's going on in this setup.
Well, more than just what she's wearing on her wrist. I got to just start with the car. We're going to start about basketball, but I'm sorry.
We got to stroke her some more. Oh, you got to, you know. This is funny because the women in the NBA and the women's soccer leagues and such are always complaining about the pay gap and how little money they make. So now they're gonna big up her about her wheels, about her car, right? And they're gonna sort of like playfully gesture at an argument to the effect that, well, if you're not making as much money as you say you should be making, how'd you afford a car this nice? Whatever. Okay, whatever. Okay, look at the look on her face. This is like, you know, this is what the woman craves, right? I mean the woman generally. I mean this particular woman, right? She's being lavished at the outside of this clip, okay?
Posted on your IG that you have new wheels. Would you please show us that?
It's a dope car. It's a dope. And Tracy McGrady's still at it. He's still at it. He's just like, man, I know I'm gonna say something later in this clip that she's gonna have some beef with, so I'm just gonna pour it on. I'm gonna lay it on thick early on.
Well, they pay like that overseas, right?
Overseas.
Right? Look at that. All right, please tell us what you got here. Brag a little.
I have a Maserati Levante S Gran Lusso. It's a crossover. I love it. It's fast.
She got it on Saturday night. She drove it pretty much everywhere, and then she had to come down here.
Yeah.
So she likes being here.
First car, that's honestly
It's fast.
One that I bought, yeah. Okay.
It's fast. I wonder how much she really knows about that car she's driving. I wonder how much of her desire for that car was informed by her desire for that particular product and its quality versus the acclaim and the notoriety and the right, whatever. I'm sorry. This is a very basic thing, and I'm not coming at her. This is a very basic thing between men's mentality and women's mentality. I'm not coming at her. We just need to be honest.
Yeah, what was your first car, Brian?
And I say this as a guy who's not a car guy, and there's a lot of chicks who know a lot more about cars than I do. All right. Let's be fair.
Chevy Cavalier.
Totally the same.
Right, what horses like. Yeah, I got the pink shirt on. Tracy McGrady's like, yeah, you got the pink shirt on. All right.
I'm going to compliment your shirt, which I like very much. So there you go. Show the people.
Now this is important. Rachel Nichols said, let's look at your shirt. I like your shirt. Now this, okay, I was gonna hold off on the deeper level commentary in this video about what the WNBA exists to do if it does not exist to make money, which clearly it doesn't, because it's never made a dime, and yet it persists. Like Hillary Clinton. She persisted, right? What does it exist to do? It's a cultural force at the bottom. It's f***ing Lucifer doing his thing, right? Via the useful idiots, all right? What does her shirt say? Popovich, Kerr. Who are Popovich and Kerr? They are two of the most outspokenly liberal coaches in the NBA who comment negatively on everything that happens in the political world as regards Trump, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so this is just, okay, we're the NBA/WNBA. We got to get in our pot shot against conservatives, and it's just rote. It's just assumed that if you're in any way affiliated with us in a business sense or a fan sense, you agree with us. And if you don't, well, there's something wrong with you. See, this is all the subtle, cultural, insidious subliminal forces at work. Oh, yeah, Popovich, you know, these two are regarded as like gurus in this world. And of course, if they have a political opinion, it's valid because why? Oh, I guess because they know a lot about basketball or something, right? So she's just, again, she knows that, and she knows that they're going to align, Popovich and Kerr are going to align with her, like, essentially feminist stance on women's basketball generally and the salaries in women's basketball, broadly speaking, right? So she's wearing this shirt onto this segment, right, to sort of to do the heavy lifting. Isn't this interesting? They want equal treatment. To do the heavy lifting of the argument for her. All right? Well, if you're going against me, I mean, you're going against stalwarts, basketball luminaries like Popovich and Kerr, right? But this is not a basketball issue. This is a rational issue. This is a cultural issue. This is an economic issue. This is a logical issue. Has nothing to do with basketball. All right? But the silly woman with the silly grin on her face has got to muster all the argumentative force behind her that she can get without actually doing it herself. So she's got her Popovich and Kerr shirt on. All right? Those two, when it comes to philosophical issues, when it comes to cultural issues, are idiots. They're useful idiots, but they're idiots. All right? But the NBA puts them forward as like the geniuses, as like well, ironically, I guess it's not down with the patriarchy because, right? Because here's a feminist with two patriarchs on her t-shirt. Whatever.
Do you feel pressure as a number one pick? Because we'll have a new number one pick coming up tomorrow night. How much pressure comes with that? Because the WNBA is always partly about
no pressure because no one cares.
Playing basketball and partly about you have to help women's sports and all that stuff that people always tell you.
I think it is a little bit of pressure.
Obviously, no, it's no pressure.
Every year we have new faces coming into the league.
New faces, but nobody even remembers the old faces, okay? It's the WNBA. No one's watching except for friends and family.
Especially people are going to remember who's the number one pick.
Yeah.
And friends and family, let's be honest, friends and family are watching not because it's exciting, because they love you and they wish that you weren't a lesbian.
It's like, all right, let's see what kind of game we got.
Yeah, absolutely. And do y'all sort of, will hazing come in for whoever gets picked first?
Of course we have no hazing.
No, never. It would never happen in any professional sports league at all.
I don't know that she is. I'm just saying it's prevalent in that league, and the league exists to promote its normalcy. All right? All right.
Everyone loves watching the Storm play. I especially just love the uniforms because of what they remind me of.
No, not everyone loves watching the Storm play. Let me give you an example. I did not know that a team called the Storm existed 33 minutes ago.
What do you guys expect from the team this season?
I think we're really looking forward to an exciting year. Obviously, year 3 for me, year 4 for Jewel, year a lot for Sue Bird. But just the fact that she's coming back.
Now look it. She would be like, Nick, you're stopping this video every 10 seconds. Well, look at it. Just look at it. Right? They are playing this clip of this non-alley-oop over and over and over again because this right here is as exciting as women's basketball gets. And that is why the upper level that you see behind this frame is completely dark. What, Nick? Because no one's sitting in it. All right? Because no one cares. So they're showing this pseudo alley-oop, the alley-oop layup, the touch pass alley-oop, touch goal, right? Over and over and over again because it's really hard to make this case empirically. All right? This is why they usually make it ideologically, and you can only sort of throw in some loose empirical. It's like, why should anybody pay these players more? Well, look what they can do. Well, they can't do anything, comparatively speaking, right? It's just not exciting because men are more athletically gifted because they're more physically gifted than women, and that's what sells the tickets. Why is this controversial? Controversial? Controversial?
That's the fact that we have another year of experience under our belt. The past 2 years we made it to the playoffs but didn't get as far as we wanted, so we're looking forward to doing more this year.
I got a question.
Oh! All right. Now look. All right, everybody. Rachel Nichols was like, all right, we knew we queued up this whole segment for you, Tracy McGrady. Yeah, now's your time. You've buttered her up sufficiently. You know what? You've told your wife you love her. You told her you love her. You told her she's pretty, right? But now it's like, hun, you're not cutting it. You gotta you gotta stop with the sweatpants, or you gotta give it up a little bit more, or you gotta try, right? And here's a way you might be successful, right? Sorry. Look at this. Watch. Brian Windhorst is like, I got a lot of respect for you, man. Look at the look on his face. Look in his pink shirt. He's like, go for it, man. Do it. I'm not doing it. You do it.
And this is not a shot at women basketball.
Well, good, because you're going to be...
I'm sorry. My headphone fell out there. Sorry. No, it is a shot at women's bet. Look how pussified everybody is. See, I fortunately don't have to be pussified, all right? Because no one's listening to me. I don't care, all right? I'm telling you the truth. The numbers bear it out, all right? You know it. I know it. No one's watching the stupid game. And you know what? I say this as a man with 3 daughters, and I don't really care, as much as I love basketball, if they ever pick up a basketball in their lives. And I sure as hell don't want them sucked into a world where a bunch of girls older than them and coaches older than them and owners older than them and administrators and bureaucrats older than them are trying to pull them subtly into a cultural movement like lesbianism via a game that their dads played. Because their dads couldn't differentiate between how you behave towards a child when you have a son and how you behave towards a child when you have a daughter. I don't give a f***, all right? I say this as a man with 3 daughters. So, fellas, have some balls and stop expecting your daughters to have them.
I had this talk. I think me and Rebecca Lobo had this talk during the Hall of Fame, and I was talking about doing something that gets...
Look how he had to do that little feminine, like, eye roll, shoulder roll, like, oh God, here it comes. Like, oh, I'm just whimsically thinking of anything. Like, he hasn't given this a lot of thought. Look, this is so funny. All right. Should I back it up? Because now I feel like I've interrupted his point. He's saying, look, I got a suggestion for something you could do that might sort of ameliorate this problem that you guys are always nagging everybody about, namely that you don't make as much money as the men. Now, you're never going to make as much money as the men, obviously, but maybe I got a little thought about something that might help. What's Tracy McGrady think is going to help?
You know, not your average fans, people that NBA, WNBA, basketball.
I.e., everyone that's not friends or family of someone in the league. So he's saying, like, well, we know the fans, the real fans are going to watch no matter what, but what about those other folks that we're trying to get to pull them in, i.e., everyone that would even remotely begin to solve this insolvency, this economic insolvency of the league. Namely, no one's checking for this. Namely, no one's watching it. No one's paying for it. No one cares. Tracy McGrady is trying to be a helpful husband here. All right? I know I keep putting this sort of like analogically, metaphorically in marriage terms. Paul in the Bible says, husbands, dwell with your wives according to knowledge. Tracy McGrady has accounted for, in his mind, what this woman needs to hear versus what she wants to hear. And he's doing his damn dead level best to tell her what she needs to hear in a way that she might at least, well, she maybe doesn't want to hear it, she might be able to palate it. He's being a good husband.
What can we do to get those fans to tune in? And I was like, why can't we lower the goal to at least 9.5?
Now, I say this as a dude who's never dunked on 10. I've dunked a volleyball on 10 foot. I've never dunked, or a mini basketball maybe. I've never dunked a regulation basketball on a regulation 10 foot rim. Tracy McGrady's suggestion is, why don't we bring down the rim in women's basketball? Now you might think, well, what's that? Why? Well, it's very obvious. Because the game lacks excitement. And one of the fundamental, like, machine, or the exclamation points of excitement in a basketball game is the sort of like climactic, cathartic explosion that is one player dunking on another. It's not just another 2 points. It's a very, very, very psychological 2 points. And it's important to the game. Now, this is actually a really interesting suggestion. And I'm ashamed to say I've never really considered it. Okay? And I don't think that this Brianna, what's her name, is really considering it. And I think that she is so informed and informed by and infused with her cultural feminism that she can't see the merit in this idea, nor the charitability in its suggestion by Tracy McGrady. And it really is an interesting, it's defeasible. Maybe there's other reasons not to do it, but it's a very fecund suggestion. All right?
Because I think for somebody that don't watch WNBA basketball, to have women dunking on other women would definitely
make it mildly worth, somewhat worth watching. Now look at her bristle at this suggestion, because what's implicit in this suggestion is people don't actually want to watch you play basketball. And that's why the WNBA is taking the NBA is taking $10 million of its profits and pouring them down a drain just so you can keep doing it.
Bring more excitement to that game and have, those guys that don't watch WNBA.
Brian Windhorst in the pink shirt is like, man, I can't believe you just said that, dude. You're a better man than me.
Tune in and you get more fans that way. What do you think about that?
I mean, my thought on it is, I've been playing basketball on a 10-foot hoop my whole life.
That's irrelevant. No one was watching you play on a 10-foot hoop, and no one is watching you play on a 10-foot hoop. The suggestion is along the lines of what might cause people to care about you playing on the 10-foot hoop that you've been playing your whole life, or shooting a ball into a hoop your whole life. And that's a suggestion, okay? It doesn't matter what you've been doing. What you've been doing is not working.
So to move it to 9.5, it's going to take a long time to get used to that?
Right. That's a valid point. I mean, look, I say this as a kid who grew up playing basketball, loved dunking, and me and my friends would, we found that one playground lot in the neighborhood that had the lower rims for whatever reason, and we'd go. There was some nights of the week where it was like, we're not going to play ball, we're just going to go dunk. So we'd go to the hoop that was 9 feet tall or 9.5 feet tall, and we'd throw down our best dunks, right? It was all about who had the best hops and who had the most creative dunks. Right. And every once in a while, instead of just dunking on that rim, we would play a game on that rim, and you know what? It was fucking exciting. Because it went from a bunch of little dudes, it suddenly became, it suddenly became like an NBA game where someone might get dunked on at any moment, and the level of drama increased, and the level of tension increased, and the level of excitement increased. And you know what all those things make increase? Revenue. And you know what revenue increase brings? Profit increase. And you know what profit increase brings? Salary increase, which is what you say you want.
And then also,
but she's got a valid point. I've been practicing this one way my whole life, but the counterpoint is obvious. It's not working. Now what?
Only playing basketball to dunk? I'm not sure.
No, you play.
No. That's a fallacious argument. She goes, so what? So we're only playing basketball to dunk? No. You're playing basketball to exemplify and perfect, right, all the facets of the game. But clearly some of them have more gravitas with the fan than others. So here, like a good husband, I'm offering you suggestion about your behavior that is ultimately beneficial to you, and you're so defensive that you cannot see the merit in it.
You just want to see me dunk on somebody?
So I'm only good for sex? This is what she's saying. This sorry, to the translation. I'm sorry. We just transposed to the metaphor here, right? So this is all I'm good for? No, but it is one of the primary functions of this relationship, this activity, this right? And you want to be... Is it your complaint that nobody wants... Sorry, is this obvious? Look how defensive she's being. So I'm only good for that, so that's all we're good for? No, but it is what is a draw. It is what draws people to you. Now you keep claiming that you want people drawn to you, right? Put some lipstick on.
The skill level is off the charts.
No, it's not. See, this, again, Paul in the Bible, husbands, dwell with your wives according to knowledge. The skill level's not off the charts. The skill level in the WNBA is not off the charts. The skill level in the NBA is off the charts. Now, either we're talking about the same charts or we're not. If we're talking about the same charts, the WNBA is not off the charts. If we're talking about different charts, fine. The skill level in the WNBA is off the charts for a girl. But that's not what they want. They want equality. All right?
And women's basketball. Right. But I think as far as bringing in entertainment.
Yeah, I understand that for sure.
Do you? Do you want to make more money?
That element,
Look at the look. She knows. She knows.
I think, you gain more.
Rachel, save me.
By the way, Brian's adapting the T-Max sipping tea from the other.
What did I say earlier about the relationship between these two dudes? He's a good dude.
Just sitting there. I'm not going to do that anymore.
So, how about those UConn Huskies?
See, that's not bad.
No, man. Speak plainly. Brian, be a man. Tracy McGrady has a point. Even he had to dumb it down and couch it in all this complimentary nonsense. He's got a point. I'm amazed that I'm not big up in myself. I hadn't really thought about this. It's a good point. Change the parameters of the game so that the athleticism displayed can flourish against the constraints of those parameters.
A couple years ago, she was here. I was like, man, I don't want to see because they beating everybody.
That's true. There you go.
See, he's done. He got in and he got out. He's a smart dude. He's like, I made my point. I'm not making it any harder than I made it, and now I'm back to just stroking this girl's ego because I want to be on TV tomorrow, and I know who runs this town. I know who runs this culture.
Last week.
The White Witch.
I just told someone about that.
Well, oh, I'm sorry. Did you see that? I feel like I should back this up. Did you see that ball? Can I back it up without moving my frame here? Did you see that ball at the peak of its shot? That ball at the arc of its shot, the arc of its parabola, revealed that there was no one in these stands past like the 15th row. Just look. See if we can get another. Oh, empty stands.
Tracy's not the only one. A lot of people.
Oh, of course they got that framed good. Okay, there's people there. Hold on now. Oh, that was college.
Place to be in for a dominant team.
Yeah, it's what happens when you're the best, though. Like, everybody wants to see you lose, and I think that, Notre Dame, they came out, and they weren't scared of us. They weren't scared of UConn.
I have no idea what this girl's talking about because no one's watching women's basketball. Lower the rims.
Arike played great. She had 2 game winners in the Final Four, and, you can't ask for much more than that. I think, personally, for me, I've realized that the past 3 national championship or Final Fours that I've gone to, they've lost. It's not going to go next year.
So this is all. Now look what's happening now. Everyone's disseminating and disheveling. They're trying to get lost in sports history and to sort of like ameliorate the tension of this conversation. But we don't do that here. We are preoccupied with the tension of the conversation because that's where the gold mine is. That's where discoveries are made. That's where truth lies. Okay, so now this is all just going to be on like they're just stroking her ego, talking about sports history, talking about recent accomplishments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not the Gunyon. That's not the gusto. Lower the rims. The game will be more exciting. More people will come, potentially, and you might make more money.
But yeah, doesn't it elevate what you did when you were there? Because it shows how difficult it actually is to have continued dominance.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you just be like, hey, we didn't let this down when my group was there?
Right. I'm sure you mentioned that too.
Yeah, this is all just stroking her ego. No one cares.
It's kind of a little bit of a sore subject with all the UConn people, so we're kind of just going to leave it where it's at. But, winning 4 in a row is definitely not as easy as it looked. No kidding. The time went by so fast, but like you said,
you know what?
The past 2 years, UConn
It's like winning 4 in a row on the playground at elementary school. No one cares because it's kids playing on a playground and it's not the highest level of basketball and it's not exciting because what's being done there is not the feat that it is elsewhere given the other athletic, the athletic abilities and expertise you find elsewhere. So again, change the parameters, change the constraints, so that the action up against those constraints is more exciting. That's a very interesting solution, and I understand why Tracy McGrady had to sort of like couch it in all this sort of complimentary sort of like, hey, you might want to consider. But it's a good suggestion, and honestly, it's like the first constructive suggestion that's not like culturally Marxist based, like, hey, just give us this because we want it, because you're a jerk and you're a cad and you're a racist for not giving it to us. It's like the first constructive suggestion along these lines I've ever heard.
In the semis, people realize, like, no, this is really hard.
And you mentioned, by the way, the women's Final Four, which was tremendous this year, and that to me is the
Was it? I didn't watch it. Did you watch it?
Basketball is
No one watched it.
The NBA Finals have been smoking the past couple of years.
No.
The women's Final Four has
No.
been fantastic, and I think
Doesn't matter. If that were true, people would watch it. And if people were watching it, there would be more revenue. See, the market doesn't lie. You'd know if that were true. All of this is fluff talk. That's it. All right. I take it I've made my point. All right. I'll see you next time.